Okay, so we're going to make this Venn diagram here. As you guys can see, again, it's labeled powers of government. And basically what we're going to decide is what powers the national government gets to do and what powers the state governments get to do, right? We've been talking about how the Constitution creates this balance between state and national power. And by and large, we talked about that was a big problem during the Articles of Confederation. The states weren't getting along with each other. The states weren't getting along with the national government. There were all this confusion and friction about what certain states could do and what they couldn't do, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So we're going to knock this out here real quick. All right, so on the national government power side, right? The first thing we're going to talk about is something called enumerated powers. Okay? These are powers given to the national government in the words of the Constitution. Now I'm going to write something down here. I'm going to write A1, Section 8. Largely these are found in Article 1, Section 8 of the Constitution. We're not going to look at that today. I'm just telling you that. Right there. Okay? Enumerated powers are powers that are found in the words of the Constitution. And quite frankly, of all the powers we're going to talk about, these are probably the easiest ones to talk about because there's no confusion. It says right in the Constitution, the national government can raise an army. The national government can coin money. The national government can do this or that, right? So it's pretty straightforward. It's pretty easy to understand what the enumerated powers are because, again, they're in the words of the Constitution. Right, and largely they're found in Article 1, Section 8. So let's talk about, really quickly, let's maybe give two examples, right? I'm going to say raise an army, make an army, and coin money. And of course, when the Constitution was written, there wasn't paper currency yet, so today our paper money works as well, right? Okay, yeah, Judah, what do you got?
The first American paper money basically just like gold certificates pretty much?
Sure, but I would argue that banks were offering their own certificates, and I would say that was the first government money, what were known as greenbacks, came about during the Civil War. But banks were issuing currency beforehand. All right. Okay, we good? All right. Now, still on this sphere that is the national government side, let's talk about implied powers. Okay, so I'm going to draw a line here just so you guys know the two different things. Okay, these are powers of the national government that are not in the Constitution. Last week, I told you guys about something called the necessary and proper clause. Does anybody remember what that was or what that is? It was this sentence of the Constitution. Yeah, Judah, what do you got?
Pretty much just says that the government can do whatever is necessary to enforce that, basically if it's necessary to enforce the laws that they make, they can do it.
You're right there. You're knocking on the door. The only thing I'm going to say is the implied powers have to be connected to the enumerated powers. Right? So if there's an enumerated power, but there's a power in the Constitution, there's something that's not in the Constitution. If it's connected to one of these, the government can do it, right? So one of the things that I want you guys to write down here is necessary and proper clause. And then for some examples, right? Remember how I said that it's okay for the government to make an army? Well, because the government has the power to make an army, the national government does, it's okay to draft people into that army, even though the word draft isn't used in the Constitution.
Okay, one quick question I have about that. It says that the limit in the Constitution, it says that the limit for raising the army is 2 years or something like that.
It doesn't say that.
It says, I forget what the wording was.
It doesn't say that. We can look later. Let's put that on hold. I could show you all the references to an army in the Constitution. Okay, so does everybody get that? So again, one of the powers in the Constitution is that you get to raise an army, so therefore Congress can make a draft law to draft people into an army. Yes? Yes? Good. All right, so now let's go over here to the state side, all right? And we're going to write reserve powers. That's annoying. Reserve powers. Powers not given to the national government are reserved for the states. Okay, so if there is a power that isn't in the Constitution, it's a state power. Okay, so for example, nowhere in the Constitution does it talk about schools. So therefore, schools are run by states. Okay? Nowhere in the Constitution does it talk about licensing, like driver's licenses, marriage licenses, professional licenses. Therefore, all licensing is given to the state governments. Okay. Here's another thing we're kind of dealing with right now, right? Health and safety are up to the state governments, right? One of the things that we're seeing is obviously we're trying to negotiate and navigate this pandemic. And one of the things that's difficult to do in a country this size is create regulations that would help us with the pandemic, because we have 50 different health and safety standards, right? So every state is handling the pandemic a little bit differently, right? In some states there's a mask mandate, in some states there's not. In some states the schools are closed, in some states the schools are open. In some states you have to quarantine, or there's no indoor eating, there's only outdoor eating, right? Every state's doing a little bit differently. Unfortunately, one of the problems we're struggling with here is the pandemic doesn't really care what state it's in, right? It doesn't necessarily recognize what state is what. So, people, I could be in Kalispell today, I could jump on a plane and fly to another state, and we're seeing, big spreading around of pandemic. In fact, you guys probably saw that Kalispell or Flathead County, as of today, is there's more COVID cases in this county than any other county but Yellowstone County, which is Billings, and Billings is twice the population. So we're not doing real hot right now on COVID here in Montana. In fact, what they call our N rate is N1.5, which means that for everybody that gets COVID, that's spreading to at least one other person. So kind of going backwards there. I should also mention I was in a big meeting this morning, and they were going over plans for remote education. So knock on wood, I don't want to go there, but it's definitely on the table. All right, so one of the things I would argue is we'd maybe be a little bit better in combating COVID if we had one big national policy. Now, I understand why we don't. I don't necessarily think that we should create one, but it might be a little bit easier instead of having 50 different policies on how to deal with COVID. Judah?
Quick question about, our territories, do they get to do all that, or is that reserved for the national government to decide for them?
Okay, that's a great question. So territories are, I guess, yes. Territories are going to have all the powers of states, except that they're not having any representation in Congress, and there's some federal taxes that they don't have to pay. That's a super watered down answer to that question. It's actually a little bit more complicated than that, but for high school, I think that's fine. Okay. All right, we're good? All right, we're almost there. The next thing I will say is, let's go into the middle here. These are what we call concurrent powers. both national and state are allowed to exercise these powers. So the national government gets to do this, the state governments get to do this, everybody gets to do this. Now, one thing, this is just something that kind of bothers me sometimes. The word is concurrent. The word is not conjunction. I mean, they're not doing these things together, right? So for instance, one of our examples, we'll use courts, right? There's state courts and then there's national government courts, right? They're both like, so downtown Kalispell right now, you guys know where the courthouse is. There's, a judge holding court in Kalispell and they're doing state law. But in Missoula right now, on Broadway, there's judges who are hearing federal law. They're both doing it at the same time. They're doing what is known as concurrently, but they're not doing it like the court in Kalispell doesn't call up the national court in Missoula and say like, hey, what are you doing today? They're operating independently, right? Another good example is law enforcement. I mean, let's think about this. Here in the Flathead County, we've got the Kalispell City Police. We've got the Flathead County Sheriff. We have the Montana Highway Patrol. We've got the National Park Rangers and the National Forest Rangers. We've got the Border Patrol in the Customs and Immigration Service. There's no FBI agent stationed in the Flathead County, but there's about 20 of them working in Missoula, and they are often working up here, right? So there's all these different levels of law enforcement. And again, it's not like the Kalispell Police Department is calling out the Montana Highway Patrol and being like, okay, what are you doing today? This is what we're doing today. They're all doing their thing, right? And this all has to do with geography, right? We said with the federal system, it depends on where you are. You guys probably don't remember this, but this is probably 10 years ago now. There's a woman in Kalispell. She had just gotten married, and I'm trying to remember the details. She had been married like a couple weeks, and her and her husband went to Glacier National Park, and she pushed him off a cliff and killed him, right? Do you remember this? And, initially she tried to say he got kidnapped or something, but very quickly her story unraveled, and they unfortunately found his body and whatever else. So when she went on, now if she and her husband went to the roof of Glacier High School, and she pushed him off the roof of Glacier, right? That would be a state crime, right? And that would be heard in the state court. But because she went to a national park, which is national government land, and pushed him off a cliff at the national park, that all of a sudden is still a court, but now that's a national government. She went on trial in Missoula, and she's in federal prison right now because she killed her husband in a national park, right? I think there's a lesson here too. Generally, I would say, regardless of whether you're in a national jurisdiction or just generally don't kill people. I think there's better ways to maybe get out of a marriage. Yeah.
Okay, this is kind of off topic, but why are all the federal things in Missoula and not in Helena?
Well, there's a federal courthouse in Helena too. The federal courthouse in Helena, Butte, Missoula, Great Falls, and Billings. There's not one in Bozeman, which is kind of weird because Bozeman's quickly becoming one of the bigger cities in Montana, but those are where the federal courthouses are.
Okay.
Yeah. They're all in the same federal court district, but that's where the courthouses are. And Flathead County and Glacier National Park, when there's a federal crime here, it goes to Missoula. If we were on the other side of the divide, it would go to Great Falls.
Oh.
Yeah. Okay, any questions about that, right? So again, let's just close with this. There's some powers that the national government has, there's some powers that the state government has, and then there's these concurrent powers that both governments have. Let me add one more example because there's a lot of them. Taxes are another good example of concurrent powers, right? I'm working right now, so I'm going to have to pay my federal income taxes. I'm going to have to pay my state income taxes in the state of Montana. I own a house in Flathead County, so I'm going to have to pay property tax in Flathead County. I also live in Whitefish, where they have this resort tax, so when I buy stuff in Whitefish, a percentage of that goes to the city of Whitefish too, right? So we get taxed a lot on all different levels. And of course, when I buy gas and I'm gassing up my car, part of the price of gas goes to the federal gas tax, and there's also a state gas tax. There's lots of taxes, right? Benjamin Franklin said, there's nothing certain in life except for death and getting taxed. That's the only thing that's guaranteed in life. So he might have been right about that. So I know that there's not a lot of people in here, and you guys are probably tired if you took the ACT, which I understand. Does anybody have any questions about this? Okay, if not, I want you guys to put those away somewhere safe. Right? I don't want to get too far ahead. So we're going to call it quits for today.